So having conversations with somebody doesn't mean that, my point was that you can only talk about the weather and kind of high level, meaningless conversations, for so long. And then it's like, okay, I don't want to keep sharing stories from the past. I don't want to keep having meaningless small talk conversations. I think most people don't like those, and they get tiresome really fast if you have any awareness around it. And having an intimate conversation doesn't necessarily mean you're talking about yourself either. It is really talking about things that matter to the person or the people that you're having a conversation with. And it is more about, those meaningful kind of conversations, things that do impact our lives emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. Those can get, I guess, pretty deep, but ultimately that's where the intimacy lives, is having those conversations and being able to have those conversations and actually feeling safe in having them. And that's one of the keys to having an intimate conversation. And I know in relationship, I don't want to say I know, my experience has been in having conversations with men who are struggling in relationship, as I listen to them talk about their wife, their daughters generally, but even sometimes their sons, they lack this understanding that an intimate conversation is sometimes just listening to somebody have a conversation, especially in the world of women and men in relationship. I mean, when we think about intimacy, there was, back in the day, there was women, and what were they doing? They were quilting. And why were they quilting? Because women need women. They need to have those conversations, but women need to have those conversations with men as well. So I'll stop there. What's your thoughts?
Well, you bring up a couple good points, is that in order to have a level of intimacy with someone else, you also have to know what matters to you and what is into me, like what matters to me, so that I can bring up a conversation with you. So for example, I used to go to parties and I was such an introvert, even though I was on stage and in the NHL and Olympic performance coach. It's like, I don't have a big personality. So what was really helpful for me, so instead of asking people what they do, hey, so what do you do? I would say, what do you love to do? Hey, hi, I'm Steffany. I'm a, da-da-da-da. I'm here, and whether it was you and I at a party or something, and I would just ask somebody, what do you love to do? And it changed the conversation, because it wasn't about what they did for a living, because that's so base. That's so, I'm not interested. Yes, if it lights you up, I'm super interested. But what if they're, a computer programming, but they love horses? I would rather talk about what they love to do. And to me, that's intimacy. That's whether I never see that person again or not, I had a conversation that mattered, not just to them, but to me. So for me, it's conversations that matter. It's not about sharing. I mean, I can be exhausted at the end of a night after a party that means nothing. I mean, we used to go to fundraisers and some really amazing and high level and big money people, and nobody gave a shit about what was really going on. And that was exhausting to me. So I think it's defining your own level of what you need to connect.
Well, I get that, but I think there's also, we have to consider some of the challenges that we face in relationships. So I'm going to give an example. So, what are some of the signs that we're lacking intimacy, for example? And, we have to say, okay, well, what are you guys talking about? And how do I know if I'm not in an intimate relationship, or how do I know that I'm lacking it? And we can spot it, and you can spot it in conversation, because there's an emotional distancing that happens. It's one of I think the most common things that starts to happen is that a person is avoiding having any kind of a deep emotional connection. They don't want to share what's going on in terms of how they're feeling about certain things, or they're very guarded, or they're really struggling to express their emotions in an open and really in an honest way. And we see that men are famous for that, right? It's like wives wanting to connect with their husbands. How was your day? What's going on? You seem upset. Nothing. And they take it on and they carry the weight. And it really is the avoidance of having those intimate conversations, because many men, whether it be how they're brought up or the story they're telling themselves about a man, is that you carry that weight. You're a man, you're a warrior. You're not sharing how you feel about that, because of course that's what all the war movies show. There isn't intimacy in those movies. There isn't, many young men growing up, their fathers lack that intimacy. you know, I was that person. I mean, my dad, the last thing, I mean, he was one of those guys that the word intimacy had a totally different meaning to him. So I think when we look at saying, well, how do I know if I'm missing it, or somebody in my life is not willing to be intimate, it's often covering up those things.